back in time.
I feel like that should be a dance.
Can you imagine?
Are all the cameras on? Oh, is everything on?
Yes.
Oh, T1 film.
I think our director is saying we should get started. Oh, yeah. I shall love you.
It's a whole...
I'm pretty sure they are.
What episode is this? That's a signal. Hi everybody and welcome to episode 6 of Nights at the Round Table. Today we are discussing the book Neverwhere by Neil Gaiman. And I am joined today by Éric and Tracey. Neverwhere is a book about a regular, very sensible Scottish man who, after helping a young woman he finds bleeding on the street, gets sucked into London below, sort of a world where people who have fallen through the cracks reside. And then shenanigans. So I'm going to start with first impressions of the book, or general impressions of the book. Who wants to go first?
I thoroughly enjoyed it. Yeah.
Okay.
It's a fun romp through seedy underground London, giving a totally new perspective.
Yeah, okay.
I read it for the first time 19 years ago when it was published. It was my first Neil Gaiman. It was my first, arguably, urban fantasy, and I loved it then. And I've read it every 5 years since. Every time I forget the villain or the reason for why he's doing it. So this was perfectly timed.
Oh, well there you go.
There you go.
Slightly different. This book was okay. I don't regret reading it, but I didn't feel the same sort of connection, I guess, to the story or the characters that I feel with other writers. And the thing with Gaiman's hit and miss for me a lot of the time. Some of his books I find are fantastic, and then other books I'm just like, it was a thing that I read. This book was really good, but I just didn't have the emotional connection. I love what he did with all the mythologies of particularly Britain, and the way that he managed to mash them up and then draw something completely new out of them, but I could still tell where some of these stories came from. I love that about him. I love his imagination. I love how twisted he can make things. I just didn't feel the connection to this story or any of the characters in it.
See, because I had first listened to it as an audio play, I found it really enjoyable to sit and read again because I already had voices in my head.
Okay.
From the various actors who were in the audio play. And so I had really enjoyed it as that production to start with. And then rereading it just was kind of reminding me of, oh yes, this, and oh yes. No, there wasn't. I don't recall any variations, so, and I didn't re-listen to the audio play recently, I was just focused on reading the book. Just hearing it as a production certainly changes, you know, how you can relate to a story, because you can kind of visualize things a little bit differently. And just my favorite quote from it, which I managed to highlight, is just when the Marquis makes the comment of, "I've always felt that violence was the last refuge of the incompetent, and empty threats the final sanctuary of the terminally inept." And that's just beautifully written.
And also quite true.
Yeah.
I often make threats but never follow through with them.
Oh, but you're not terminally inept. No.
Who did the voice for the main character in the audio play?
Richard, it was James McAvoy.
James McAvoy.
Yeah, so full-on Scottish.
Yeah.
Proper.
Reading it and even watching the original production, he reminds me of Arthur Dent from Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Very similar style of protagonist, just Scottish instead of British.
Yeah.
So I thought maybe they had gotten
fish out of water, kind of.
Martin Freeman to do it.
No, but it was James McAvoy, and did a great job in the audiobooks. So.
Yeah.
Audio play.
Oh, that's cool.
What did you think of the pacing?
The pacing was excellent.
Really? I found it choppy.
Really?
I found it very, very choppy. It felt like someone had novelized a Doctor Who episode. A classic Who episode.
The only time I ever felt that it was sort of that the pace sort of changed was right at the end of the book, when Richard's being normal Richard in London above, and he sort of rushed through that.
That's true. Yeah, I felt that too.
That was fairly rushed.
But of course, it also had the correct feeling though, because it really represented the change in who he was.
Yes.
At that point.
Yeah.
I know that in Neil Gaiman said that when he writes for children or for young adults, every single word in his book is chosen to be the best word possible. But when he writes for adults, he just writes. So I'm thinking this might suffer from that. So like the Graveyard Book, I found everything was perfectly paced, almost like they were each short stories. Well, this, it felt like you were talking about the mythology. There's too many things for the size of the book. It's like thrown in and without going into enough depth.
See, this is probably why I didn't have the connection to the book that I do for other texts or other novels, is because there wasn't that depth.
I would have loved to see more of every aspect or take out certain aspects. Like the Velvets were really cool, and I know they were there for the end of the second act, scarring the hero thing, but they weren't really necessary. Unless you had a little more backstory and you wove them in. I know he saw them at the market.
Well, it seemed to me it's more, it allowed the book to be very much more relatable from Richard's actual perspective.
Yeah.
That here's all this information coming at you, and you can't figure out what's going on. And to me, that was okay, because it didn't need to go into super depth, because to relate to him as a main character better, just to have that feeling.
And I would love that if they had if he had stuck with his point of view.
Okay.
Like if it had been even omniscient, just him, as opposed to skipping to every single character.
Okay.
There's a big section with the monks, or although I really like them, the two
the Black
killers.
the Flyers,
The Black Friars.
the Black Flyers.
Totally different.
Yeah. Sorry.
It was very good. There are some parts of it that should have been more.
Okay.
Maybe it's something that if he had turned it into a series, he would elaborate. I know that he's writing a short story, how the Marquis got his coat back.
Oh yeah?
And he's writing a new novel, eventually, set in this world.
Oh, set.
But on the Seven Sisters.
Oh, okay.
Oh really? That would be interesting, because
yes.
the Seven Sisters were interesting.
Were they like a myth that I didn't recognize, or?
There are a number of myths involving sisters, although I think the ones I'm thinking of, there were 9 sisters.
All I can think of is like the Swan Princess.
King Lear.
Yeah.
Which Lear makes an appearance, but he's not the Lear that most people are familiar with, or even the Llŷr from Welsh mythology. He's not that either. He was a god of the sea.
You have the Pleiades star cluster. Those are referred to as the Seven Sisters.
Right. Oh,
Which
really?
is, yeah.
That's Greek.
That's Greek?
That would be,
Yeah.
that would be Greek?
I think it's Greek or Roman.
So that's probably
Yeah.
why I didn't pay that much attention to it, because not my area of expertise. It's all the Celtic studies stuff. Of which, the biggest one was the Beast of London. Which reminded me a great deal of the boar of, I'm going to mispronounce this, Truth, which is a massive boar that had a comb and a razor in its front own razors. And Culhwch and Owen, Greek mythology, they had to go retrieve those from the boar.
So like
the barber board?
razor?
Yes.
That's what I call
Like a comb and a razor.
So the
and
barber board.
No, I'm picturing a giant boar going from city to city, just like rubbing itself against men until their faces.
No, it was a trial that I think Olwen had to perform in order to win Culhwch's daughter.
Okay.
For hand marriage. Like he went through ridiculous trials like they do in mythology.
So the Pleiades are the companions of Artemis, who are 7 daughters of Atlas, and the sea nymph, Pleione.
Okay, well, there you go. Maybe
I just know because it's a star cluster.
Lamia is also Greek myth. Lamia?
Oh, yes.
Actually, there's a later bastardization of it where they're the Lamias, and which is basically a vampire myth, which fits perfectly with this.
Yeah, well, that's essentially what. It was life, not blood, but same death.
Yeah.
Yeah. Blood is life. That was not creepy at all.
Smart.
I like the pun in this. Like the heroine's name is Dol.
Yes.
of the
Yes.
family portier, which
Yes.
also means door, of the house of the arch.
Yeah.
Which, and he's warned about doors at the beginning.
At
Yes,
the beginning. Yeah,
exactly.
that's one of the things I really like about Neil Gaiman is that he'll mention something, and it'll be just something in passing.
And it
It'll
always
be-
comes back.
It always comes back to
Yeah.
be something relatively important.
There's almost nothing wasted,
Yeah,
which
that's
is
it.
nice.
It is nice. I like how he ties everything up quite so neatly. I enjoy that. It's hard to do.
Yes, it really is.
It is. It's a special skill. It's hard to do.
Writers do that.
Yeah.
Some.
Yeah, I've
Some.
heard.
Some.
Unless they're writing a series and then they think, well, I'll do it in the next one.
Ah,
Yeah.
okay. Is that how that works?
And actually, one of the things that caught me out, because I've been doing a lot of research into ancient Rome, is the mention of the 19th Legion. And they were deserters. So I had to go back and read that, because I'm like, the 19th Legion was never in Britain. So certain they were never in Britain. So I went and looked it up, and it's true, they weren't. And they were actually destroyed in the Battle of the Teutoburg Forest, I think it was called, in like 9 AD or something like that. Completely obliterated. Go Germany.
No, they weren't. They deserted and
I
went
was
to
going to
London.
say, didn't they just
Yeah,
make it
apparently-
to
yeah.
London?
Apparently they had deserters that went to London in Neil Gaiman's book. Yeah.
What did you think of the concept of pockets of time?
I really liked the way he used that, because it's sort of true in Celtic mythology that you travel to a different world and it becomes a different time, and time moves differently in this other world. So somebody, for example, could go away for 3 days. It was 3 days in the other world, but when they come back, something ridiculous like 300 years has passed.
Yeah.
So I liked that idea very much. Again, I like how he takes different myths and mashes them together, and then from like the rubbish heap that he forms, he pulls out something new and fantastic.
I'm a big fan of urban fantasy. I think I've
Yeah.
mentioned that a few hundred times. But I think it's arguably not urban fantasy, and more of an otherworld novel along the ideas of Narnia.
Well, is that
Be-
not urban fantasy?
Narnia, no, they go to a different world. Well, urban fantasy, it's everything exists at the same time, you just haven't noticed it. Well, this is, there's one world or the other.
Well, no,
I think it's a
no,
separation.
no,
that-
because
They wander through Upper London.
yeah,
They do.
But people who don't know don't notice them. But they can't hear them.
Traditional urban fantasy, you can actually usually interact back and forth without any negative issues.
But
So
they
like
do.
vampires are politicians and that type of thing.
Well,
yes.
full-on interaction.
Yeah.
But there still was that
There is.
interaction, like in at the big party where the
Yeah.
security guards are holding him because he has drawn attention to himself and
Yeah, and the scream in the microphone.
yes.
My favorite thing about that is once they had gone through the door, everybody
I
was
was
like,
what's going on? Well,
"Wow, what a wonderful
Yes.
party, sir!"
Exactly.
That's an interesting idea,
Yes.
and done way better in the book than in the movie, because it's really hard to explain both her opening doors and people just forgetting
Yeah.
in a film.
I quite like that as a commentary on how we actually treat homeless people.
Yes.
It's we see them, but we don't notice them, and then we go about our day and we've completely forgotten about them. And it's essentially that. It's the people who've fallen through the cracks. Except these people talk to rats and birds and
Yeah.
go to a market that changes location every evening. That isn't quite there.
Well, maybe.
They have an entire
We
court
just
in a
hadn't-
train carriage.
Could be there.
Could
We
be
just
there.
don't
We just
notice it.
don't notice it.
I like the name jokes. Like there's an Earl in Earl's
Oh, yes.
Court. There's
Yes.
an angel in Islington Station.
Islington,
Yes.
yeah.
Speaking of which,
Raven's Court.
spoiler. What did you think of the twist? Were you expecting it?
I
12-year-old me didn't expect it at all.
Right. Yeah, I think the first time I listened to it, I didn't expect it, and then it all made sense.
See, I didn't expect, spoiler alert, the Islington thing, but it didn't surprise me.
Right.
What did surprise me was Hunter. That's the one where I actually went, really, you bitch?
Yeah, I was surprised too.
Yeah.
And then if you think about it over, it fits her character perfectly.
Yes,
Yeah.
it does, yeah.
And
I really
and-
like her character generally.
And it makes Mr. Kroop and Vandermeer,
Yes.
way more competent than they should. It makes them look more competent than when they failed with the other bodyguard.
Oh, yes. Yeah, and I think that was a nice red herring, actually, with the failure of the bodyguard that those two had hired to try and do exactly what Hunter was doing.
Right.
They probably just hired him to kill him. So that nobody else would hire him to try to kill them.
Yeah, or something.
Yeah. What do you think of the fact that Islington still acted holier than thou? Like, he didn't go dark, he didn't turn Vader-ish. You know, traditionally a fallen angel, black wings, evil grimace and all that. But no, he was just crazy-ass angel.
Yeah, I think that was just more believable.
Yeah.
Because it was less cliche. And it was just more,
And people who are like that are just...
They don't know they're evil. That's a fantasy trope that annoys me. When people know that they're evil. I'm the evil overlord.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. Are you?
Why?
Are you really? Yeah. What's the point? I mean, I know some people are trolls and just like to stir up shit for no reason, but...
They never think of themselves as evil.
No.
Like,
although it makes you wonder, though. Like, how can you do the stuff that you're doing and not consider yourself evil?
it's amazing the flexibility of the human brain.
Yes, the
Yes.
mental gymnastics it must take.
Mental health issues.
Or that.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I liked that Islington wasn't all that he appeared to be. I liked that Hunter was not all that she appeared to be, and I especially liked that she was incredibly capable.
Mm-hmm. I liked, all the women weren't just, what's the term?
Damsels?
Lamps.
Oh, yeah!
There's the test where if you can replace the female character with a lamp and nothing changes, then that's not necessarily good. But all the women were capable, they were competent, they knew what they were doing mostly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean,
and even when
Dora
they
was like 16, so it makes sense that she'd be a little lost.
Yeah.
Right.
And also,
Her whole family just died, she's being chased by killers, and Angel backstabs her,
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Day's work.
All of his day's work. I also like that back to Hunter, because it's another myth. It's sort of referencing the Wild Hunt,
Right.
which is something I'm keenly in love with. I love the Wild Hunt. But the twist there was that the Wild Hunt is usually led by a hero, a male hero. So there's the theory that it's led by Carrière, which is the Celtic god of the hunt, or by King Arthur's ghost and his warriors, or by King Bran, who may or may not also be King Arthur, we don't know. That kind of thing. I like that Hunter in this case was a woman. Yeah.
I like the wrap up of her, the transferring of
the
the power to
Richard.
to Richard, and and her quick reference warrior, and suddenly he's like, what?
No.
What?
Not.
Yeah. No. And that seems to be the nice way for somebody to be bestowed with more power than they actually think they deserve, but that they have earned it. And
yes, I also like that she comes around in the end. But see, that death should have made me more upset than it did. I just read and I was like, okay.
Damn. I think there wasn't enough time between the betrayal and her redemption. They're like, okay, she died. Oh well, she deserved it.
Yeah, but that was the whole way through this entire book. I'm like, this happened. Oh well.
I think it's because there wasn't as much of an in-depth in each character.
Yeah, maybe.
Because unfortunately, the most likable, other than Richard, was the Marquis,
right?
Who was probably the most detestable of.
Yeah.
Arguably worse than
If you knew him in real life, yes.
Yeah.
Probably smack him up a little bit. Stop it! I owe you nothing.
Yeah.
Yeah. In the version where it's Odin leading the Wild Hunt, it's not even properly Odin. It's like Odin diminutive. So.
It's like a ghost of him.
Kind of. Yeah. That's
a shadow, whatever you want to call it.
But I like the idea of the hunt, because they not only do they hunt beasts, like the Beast of London, but they also hunt the wicked and drag their souls to hell.
And it's all the ghosts of someone, right?
Yeah, it's usually the spirits of great heroes. So again, King Arthur or King Bran and his warriors. Or, the actual god of hunting. Sorry. I'll shut up about it now. I get super excited about Celtic study stuff.
I don't need to do any research.
Exactly.
But only specifically about stuff that has no bearing on modern life whatsoever. Useless information.
Oh no, I know my
Fascinating.
mythology, just not the Celtic one.
Right. Okay, so any other last thoughts before we go to our star rating?
I enjoyed it, but I would actually recommend people listen to the audio play
Yeah?
and just enjoy that, enjoy the actors and how they present it.
Yeah, I can see how that would, the whole time I was reading this I was thinking that it would translate to a fantastic film.
Yeah.
I watched the original miniseries. The book came out after the third of 6. Listen to the audio play. Or read the book. They're way better.
Oh yeah? Oh. Well then.
I'm enjoying it. I enjoyed it partly because of nostalgia, partly because it's exactly in the genre I like to read.
Yes, okay, that's true. Alright, so then if you were to give it out of 5, what would you give it?
4.
4?
Yeah.
Yeah. 4.
3. It was a good book, but it didn't blow my socks off. Like, Wizard's first rule was I found far more enjoyable than this. Sorry, Neil Gaiman.
Not enough torture?
Well, it might be it, although, the marquee.
Yeah. It's not described as much.
Oh, it's not described, that's
Yes.
true, that's true. Wow, I'm a sadist. Okay, who wants to pick the next book?
What a surprise.
Sure. It could also be because this is not fantasy.
Well, it is fantasy. Can you read?
The Ruby Knight by David Eddings.
So this is the second book in the Millennium series. We did the first book last season. So I'll try and get the same people on, but it might not happen. Okay, so next book we're reading is The Ruby Knight by David Eddings. It's book 2 of the Millennium, which was one of my favorite series growing up. It doesn't hold up as well though, as I remember.
It held up better than most.
It did, yeah, yeah, okay. So that's the next book. Thank you very much for watching and or listening. If you have any book suggestions, feel free to leave them in the comments. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and you can find us on Twitter and Facebook. Thank you very much.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.